Ew, ew. Ah. Yeah, we're gonna get right to it. Actually, are we gonna get right to it? I don't know. But I just checked out the Candace Owens interview with Joe Budden. You had to pay for this one on the Patreon. I was not a Patreon member of Joe Budden, so he got me for the homie membership, $5 a month. I think it was worth it. I think it was worth it. I don't know if I'm gonna I don't know if I'm gonna re-up or cancel it before next month, but just because I don't watch, too much of Joe Budden's, I'll be honest. And when I do, it's typically just seeing his clips on YouTube. But this interview, it's got me thinking, and it's got me questioning myself on the question that you see below, which is Candace Owens the most important voice in America right now? Is Candace Owens the most important voice? I don't know. How are we even feeling about Candace right now? Because I know, especially within the Black community, I would say she's polarizing in maybe every community, but there's definitely a strong triggering effect when Candace Owens starts to speak and voice her opinions on certain things amongst the Black community. I think a lot of that is based on how the media has tried to manipulate us, especially on the liberal side. Because Candace is a conservative or has conservative values, lives a conservative life, has a platform based on a lot of conservative values, I think that that's a threat to Democrats and the liberal side looking to control a lot of Black voices, but voices overall. So here you have Candace, who's a Black woman, super intelligent. Nobody, whether you disagree with her or not, you're not going to say that she's not intelligent. Super intelligent, tells it like it is, not scared, and stands on principles, values, morals, and integrity. You may not always agree with her, but when I see her as being genuine, being honest, and telling us what needs to be said rather than what we want to hear. And I think what throws a lot of people off is she's a woman. So a lot of times her energy or how she communicates, especially looking at the Joe Budden interview, her energy and how she communicates, in a lot of ways, you would almost expect a man to communicate that way. Like, as I was watching that interview, I was looking at Candace Owens on the left, Joe Budden on the right. And Joe Budden, who like I said, I don't watch too much of him, but I always thought of him as a stand-up guy that wasn't bothered by media backlash, society's backlash, all these things. But as I'm watching this, and also let me throw this out there, Joe Budden is also Joe Budden has always came across a real person. He used to hang out in Montclair. I think he lives in Montclair, so he used to hang out at the Crosby in Montclair a lot. And he even, like, when we had the OG, matter of fact, hold on, let me show y'all this real quick. So when we had, y'all remember these? When we had the set, so I just gave a whole bunch of stuff to Goodwill. So I had some of these laying around, the sets, the OG sets. Yeah, had the top and bottoms. Budden, he actually gave it to Sin. He was with Sin at the time. Sin Santana, his child's mother. I don't think they're together still. G in the building. Yeah, the throwback set. And he actually gave it to Sin. He gave it to Sin. Sin posted it, showing love to the OG page. So that was dope. He always came across as a genuine person. But as I'm watching their interview, the way that she's communicating is in a way that you would almost expect, like if you define masculine communication with feminine communication, I almost would think about it as my dad when he spoke to me when I was younger compared to my mom. My mom's going to be a little bit more comforting, more nurturing. She's going to rub my back as she's telling me, you know what I mean? It's going to be a little bit different, almost like a grandmother approach compared to a grandfather or a father. It's going to tell you straightforward exactly what it is. And it's not because they're looking to be mean, but they want to be as direct as possible because they're worried about you. you've ever had a parent tell you something, or especially like a father, they're going to be direct and straightforward in their communication style, because a lot of the things that they're talking about are things that they believe can prevent you from being in harm. So as I'm listening to the conversation between Joe Budden and Candace, I can't help but see like Candace is just being straightforward. She's being genuine, direct communication, to the point, not worried about being politically correct, all these different things, while Joe is pretty much admitting like, I'm scared to, I'm scared to agree with you. And he kept saying like, Candace and your facts, to where it's like, hold on, what? Like, as a man, it almost felt as if, you hear that saying, facts over feelings. Isn't the man supposed to be the one that's giving the facts and giving the direct line of communication without being concerned with, oh, well, this may sound a little funny, or I may get some backlash from this? That's one of the responsibilities of being a man, right? Like, I would think so. So, and especially when you're evaluating situations, we're supposed to be the more logical ones and less emotional ones. But as I'm looking at the interview, I heard a lot. I'm not gonna say all I hear, but I heard a lot. Joe Budden say, "Oh, here you go again, Candace, with your facts." And I'm just sitting back thinking, like, what other, like, outside of facts, what would you like to evaluate your thoughts and opinions on? So for me, it was a little bit off. And hold on. Hey, so my little cuz, he's texting me right now. And I want to say, little cuz, if you want, I can cam you up. But if not, I'm definitely going to relay exactly what you sent over, but or if it's cool with you. But he said, so all right, so my little cuz called me out. I'm gonna tell you exactly why my little cuz called me out. He said I'm going too soft on people like Joe Budden. He said I'm going too soft, and perhaps I am. And cuz you probably seen, I've even in my communication, I was talking to Aunt Lord while I was watching the interview, and Aunt watches Joe Budden, and I found myself even in talking to Aunt saying like, Budden, he's on his journey, whatever. I still think that he's selling. I think it's unfortunate because when you have a voice like Joe Budden's, who I look at as a strong voice and an influential voice, if he was able to communicate, see what people like Joe Budden do, they create a barrier for Black people to understand what a person like Candace Owens is saying. Now, what do I mean by that? Candace Owens, she's not seen as relatable to the majority of, I'm not even going to just say the Black community, but the Black community and the young Westernized community. So when you have this barrier that, oh, well, no, Candace Owens, she just be hating, she just be this, a person like Joe Budden could tear down that barrier and be like, well, nah, actually what Candace said makes sense. Actually, I'm going to give her a platform, which I appreciate him for giving a platform. And think about it, people were even upset with him for even giving her a platform. So going back to what Lil Cuz said, my Lil Cuz, he's mad because, and I feel him. I'm telling you, like a year ago, I would have definitely been coming at Joe Budden in a different way. But you know what it is for me, Lil Cuz? I've gotten to the point where I used to become so frustrated and just focusing on calling out, as you would say, and as I would have called it before, coonish behavior. And I still call it that in certain ways. But it would become so frustrating. I told myself that, and it was a challenge to myself, that until I get to a position that I'm not going to teach, because I used to always do that with Jay-Z. And I think that a lot of the stuff that I was calling Jay-Z out on, a lot of these other people that would fit into like, yo, you're cooning right now. Like when Jay-Z was doing all the weirdo stuff with Kaepernick, first he's telling us to support Kaepernick. Next thing you know, because he gets a financial deal with the NFL, he's telling us we're past kneeling, like he was one of the people kneeling, or like he lost anything from telling people to support Kaepernick. But then he gained a whole bunch now off of Kaepernick taking a knee. just because they're now using him with the NFL. So when I used to call out that stuff, I still think that I'm spot on. But for me, it was just taking away my energy and focus from just getting to a position to where I'm just as influential as them. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot to complain about. And I'll give you this, even with as I was watching the Joe Budden interview, in all actuality, I think that he conducted an amazing interview for Candace, because we were able to see, like, bro, you're pandering, your views look soft, and it looks like you're just scared. You're looking at it from like, there's a couple of times Joe Budden said, well, who's to say that fat people aren't healthy? Like, what? Like, when you have somebody influential saying something like that. And there was another time where he said, well, just let people be what they be, talking about the trans community and everything. It's almost as if, bro, you want to just not take accountability or accept responsibility for telling anybody how they should be living, or giving them any guidance. So therefore they can't hold you to those same standards. And it seems like that's what a lot of people run from. So when I look at somebody like Anton Daniels, you guys may not be as familiar with him. I used to watch Anton a lot more, but now I'm just getting back into him. I look at a Candace Owens. We have to respect certain people that are actually living the lives that they're encouraging other people to live. Where Anton always says, he just had a back and forth with Boyce Watkins. And Boyce, if you go back and look at that, like, Boyce looked pretty bad in that exchange when Anton came on Boyce's show and Boyce was calling him out, talking about him, whatnot. And you could just, feminine men speaking on things with feminine energy and now looks very bad. So when I say that Joe Budden's conducted an amazing interview for Candace, it was at the expense of him looking terrible as far as what my little cousin is talking about, as far as being a coon. She's calling out things that will directly impact, in particular, the Black community, but the overall American community. And that's why I say, is Candace Owens the most important voice in America right now? I believe that one of the biggest issues plaguing America is what benefits the Democratic Party so much, that where they have to feed into it. They have to feed into the division and the divisiveness created amongst Black and white people. And we know it's like boxing. We know that if we can get the Black person versus the white person, we can create a dynamic where we're going to have an amazing fight. Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather. People are going to pay for that because we always root for race. We've been conditioned in this society to always go for that. So when you take somebody like a Candace Owens and you take some of these other people that I mentioned, like Anton Daniels, their voices, they're not saying, and let me kind of, hold on, I'm going off on a tangent. Let me get back to what I was saying as far as with Joe Budden. I think his interview was amazing for us to be able to see and humanize Candace and to see her personality and to see why she's dynamic and why a lot of people like her and love her. I think that interview did it. And I think it's going to make a lot of people question. It's like, wait, you got this guy, Joe Budden's talking about, Candace is bringing facts to the table. And Joe Budden, everything he's responding to across the board is from an emotional state. It's like, well, you're making people feel bad when you say that. And it's like, what? Like, you got people, you're making people feel bad, but then you got agendas that she's fighting against that are making boys cut off their penises. And you're worried about, oh, you're making people feel bad. You get what I'm saying? These agendas that she's directly fighting against are life-threatening, are threatening to our society across the board. And then when you have, what did Joe Budden say? I forget. I took no notes. All I did was just listen. So I'm sure different things are going to pop in my head as I'm just having the convo with y'all. But everything that it just seemed that Joe Budden was responding with was just emotion. You're making people feel bad. Oh, I don't want to say that because, I don't want to piss off the people that follow me. And I'm just like sitting here like, damn, can't, and like I said, it was an amazing interview for Candace, and maybe Joe doesn't care. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't care as far as how he looked. Maybe he doesn't realize how he looked. I believe that Ant told me that after the show, he's going on his regular show and put out different clips responding to the interview, just saying like, yeah, I didn't press her as much. I just wanted to hear her, speak. I didn't want to, push back too much. And all it came across was, and I think he's being a little dishonest when he says that. I think he's being totally dishonest when he says that, because this is what happened. This is what I see happen with a lot of interviews. When you have somebody like a Candace Owens, when you have somebody like Anton Daniels, when you have people that speak straightforward and direct and rely on facts and logic to prove their points rather than emotions. And this is what happens. Everybody pushes back. Everybody has a lot to say before the interview. Everybody has a lot to say about this person and how they think about stuff. It's silly, it's stupid, or this person is this. But then when you actually sit down before them and you realize that, damn, this person is speaking with straight logic and facts, I can't really respond to that. For one, I probably agree with it and I understand it. And for two, if I do respond just to go against it, I'm going to look like a fool. So what it reminds me of is everybody before every Floyd fight. What did we see before every Floyd Mayweather fight? Everybody, I'm going to bully Floyd. I'm going to put pressure on him. He's not going to be able to keep me off him because he doesn't punch hard. All this, everybody would talk and say every and anything that they're going to do before they fight Floyd Mayweather. But when they got in the ring, it was different. It was different. And that's what happened with Joe Budden and Candace Owens. He can sit here and say, and I get why he's saying it. Oh, well, I just didn't want to push back. I just wanted to hear her voice. I was curious, that type of stuff. I didn't hear what he said exactly, but this was Ant was telling me. And you see it all the time in interviews. So it's like, yeah, you could say all this stuff, but when somebody comes with logic, when you have a Floyd Mayweather who comes with skills, preparation, and you realize that all the stuff that we criticize about Floyd, him going out there, he's not really going out. He's not really drinking. He's actually training. He makes it seem like he's just doing all these things. It's the same thing with Candace. It's the same thing with a lot of these people, that it's easy to criticize them from afar. It's easy to criticize them from afar and say what we would do if we had a conversation with them. But when it comes down to it, when you're sitting in front of them, you realize very quickly, like, oh, this is different. This person is actually out of my league a bit. And not only are they out of my league, but they're willing to speak honest truth. So now you have somebody that's out of my league, maybe a bit intellectually, as far as the things that we're discussing. And then you have somebody also who's willing to tell it straightforward and stand on truth and principle. How do you combat that? So going back to the question below, let me see if Lil Cuz responded. Going back to the question, I just got a funny, you know how Facebook suggests friends? I just got a funny one. But going back to the question at the bottom of the screen, why am I contemplating that question in my mind? It's because one of the biggest issues that we have in America is the division that has been caused on the basis of race. Obviously, we had slavery in this country. Obviously, we had Jim Crow. We saw the struggle with the 60s, civil rights, and all this other things, and all the way up until George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, all these other things. To me, that is one of the most manipulating tactics that has garnished control over us for years in a way that it only benefits a small percentage of people at the top that control things, and it is detrimental to the people that are actually in the game, that are on the ground. Us having all this racial animosity towards each other, or us having all this division that's based on, oh, this person's racist, that person's racist, all these different things, has caused us to not only stagnate in society, but to go backwards. It's to go backwards. And what do I mean when I say that it only benefits a small percentage of people at the top? Take Black Lives Matter, for instance. Thankful for Candace Owens doing a documentary on them, because if she didn't, we would not have maybe realized, we definitely wouldn't have realized or acknowledged to the degree of how much they were an organization that was straight using, when you talk about racism, they were using the pain of Black people getting killed in order to raise funds for an organization that donated the majority of their money to LGBTQ or trans communities, trans agendas. So you use what is, in most cases, let's look at George Floyd, a Black man being killed by a police officer, right? That was the narrative. Now, look into Candace Owens' other documentary, and you'll realize that George Floyd was not killed by a police officer. He was killed by fentanyl. It just is what it is. It just is what it is. Now, I'm not supposed to say that, right? But it's just the truth. It's just the truth. And if you haven't seen the documentary, then you really can't speak on it. Now, so you have this pain and struggle of a Black man, a Black straight man dying. But then you have a trans organization disguising themselves as a Black Lives Matter organization, and they're raising all this funds on the back of George Floyd, a straight man, and most straight men dying. You know, there was Sandra Bland, but most of these situations, Trayvon, Mike Brown, Eric Garner, all these different situations are straight Black men. But you have this organization of lesbian and gay Black women that are raising money and then donating them millions of dollars to their homeboy for security, or ex-wife, ex-husband, whatever, for security, but then donating to all these organizations, these fake organizations. And I say fake organizations because allegedly, you got to say allegedly, right? Allegedly, they're not even, if you look at Candace Owens' documentary, they're not even real organizations. And when I say real organizations, they're not doing the things that they say that they're doing. So once again, why is Candace Owens the most important voice in America right now? Why am I considering that? Imagine an America where there wasn't the racial division between Blacks and whites. Imagine an America where there wasn't the division between whether or not a boy or a man born with a penis should be able to compete against a woman in a sport because they woke up or they felt, maybe their entire lives felt like a woman. I don't know. Imagine us being a country that's divided on all those things, and we wouldn't even be able to be divided on all of these other things that seem so obvious. Like, yeah, there's boys sports and there's women's sports. Who would want their daughter competing? And I saw like an MMA thing. Who wants their daughter competing against men in sports? If you have women's college sports, now my daughter will never win another medal because the men who are obviously more physically gifted or stronger, faster, bigger, all these different things. So they're going to dominate that sport. That's the whole point of separating them. But listen to my point. My point is that we wouldn't even be able to be divided on these issues if it wasn't the division that they create based on the emotions of race. They know that race are discussing race and racism and all these different things. And that's the thing that we're going to be as emotionally involved in. So they know that they can trigger us with that. So if they convince us that that other side is racist, then they know that, hey, we're just going to rock with this side regardless. We're rocking with this side. So then what this side does is push all these other agendas that we would never be okay with. But now because we're so hardened on standing by this side with these Democrats, we're black, we're standing on the other side with Democrats because those Republicans have been racist. So now what ends up happening is all the Democrats pass all these different things and push these different agendas that the black people as overall as a community, just like any other community, would be looking at it like, yo, this doesn't make any sense. But now we're the main people fighting for these agendas that we don't even agree with, all because we've been convinced that that other side is racist and that trumps everything. Because that other side, because we've been convinced that that other side is racist, we'll stand on whatever this side is saying and we'll fight for them. We'll fight for this side, even though this side has told us for years that they're going to do A, B, and C for us and haven't started on A. When we go back and we review the history and we look at, the Great Society, Lyndon B. Johnson, all his social programs, when you look at those things and then you look at the mindset of Lyndon B. Johnson, all of these things were created to control and manipulate black people. And when you can control and manipulate black people, you're always going to have a division that you will be able to trigger people in order and trick them into supporting whatever agenda it is that you want to push, all because you've got them sold on the fact that that other side is racist. That's why you can get a Joe Budden to tell Charlemagne, who's on one of the probably most popular, is The Breakfast Club the most popular show amongst the black community? So here you have Joe Budden that can come on one of, if not the most popular show in the black community and say, you ain't black unless you vote for me. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. We got to understand these things, why people say the type of things that they say to us, why they feel comfortable seeing us in a particular light. So, excuse me. So why do I have that question? Why am I considering that question once again? When you have somebody like Candace Owens come to the table, what it does is it forces us to see things from a more logical standpoint. And when we see things from a more logical standpoint, we're automatically going to be less emotionally triggered. When we see things from a standpoint of, oh, this person is actually pushing conservative values. What are a lot of those conservative values? Oh, I believe in the foundation of family. That's such a wild thing to conceptualize and to embrace? When Candace Owens calls out the fact that, and she said it in the Breakfast Club interview, that blacks in the Jim Crow era were outpacing whites economically. Why? Because we were having families. Like the numbers have almost inverted, like they've reversed to the point where we used to be married, and I don't know the exact stats, but I think we used to be married somewhere between like 70 and 80% during those times that we were very successful economically. Now it's the opposite. I think the number, I don't know the exact number, but it's probably somewhere between 20 and 30% that we're getting married. So the numbers have flipped. And also we see economically, things are not as bad. Why? When we go back to the social programs that Candace Owens always speaks out against. These programs were designed to have the government become the father in the black household. When you remove the father from the black household, the mother now relies on the government for all the things that a father is supposed to provide. The mother now develops a resentment to the father and to black men. And it leads to a snowball effect in all these other issues that we now see that plague the black community. It's very simple, but for whatever reason, we don't look at it. When you have a government that says, hey, we'll give you support with your house, but then we're gonna visit your apartment and make sure that a man's not living here because we're not supporting you if another man lives here or if a man lives here. We're only gonna give you the support if it's just you and your kids, maybe. That's what's happening. That is legit what's happening. And for whatever reason, we've still been convinced to not only walk in the wrong direction that we know is the wrong direction, but now to the point where it's like we're running. Like we're running in the wrong direction, knowing it's the wrong direction, just running toward the fire as if we're not going to get burned, as if we're not going to burn our children. So I really don't understand. Well, I just don't. I understand. I just don't agree. Like it's almost like I don't understand. Like I understand how it happens. Like I'm seeing how it happens, so I can see how it happens. But it's very hard for me to make sense out of the fact as why we would buy into this on both sides. And this is why I asked the question the other day: which is worse? Which produces worse outcomes? White guilt or white supremacy? Which produces more harmful outcomes for the Black community? White supremacy or white guilt? Because white supremacy caused, remember I just said that Candace Owens was highlighting that in the Jim Crow era, we were outpacing whites economically. So white supremacy, I get just looking at the results. Maybe we were so scared. We knew we needed a family. Well, sometimes I guess we can get scared into doing the right things. But when we're not scared, I guess it's just like a child. It's just like an adult. We're not going to eat healthy. We're not going to exercise. We're not going to worry about all these other things until when? Oh, until you got a disease or a condition that now may become life-threatening. Now it's like, oh, no, I got to do all these things. I got to change my lifestyle. I got to do all these things. Fear is not bad across the board. Fear does produce some positive results. Fear makes sure that it always checks you, keeps you in check. Keeps you in check. So then you have the other side of things, white guilt. What does that produce? That produces, oh, well, let's give them some help with affirmative action. Let's give them some help with the social programs, all these different, oh, I feel bad that, these people went through. What it creates is a victimized mentality amongst Black people. It creates more racism than white supremacy, because what you do is you excuse the behavior and you're telling this group of people that, oh, well, of course we can't expect you to score as high as, these other Asian kids. Of course we can't expect you to score as high as the white kids. But don't worry, we'll accept you with we'll just lower our standards for you. I mean, well, we're not going to lower our white standards, but we're not going to lower our Asian standards. We're not going to lower our Indian standards, but we'll lower your standards and allow you to join. Do we understand what's going on? When you lower standards, what ends up happening? So there's no urgency when you have white guilt. And what white guilt does is it gives us a comfortable pillow to lay on of achieving anything but merits. So it takes away from us having to produce in a merit-based society. And it just makes us comfortable by saying, like, whoa. We had all these years of slavery. We had all these. And who is saying this? Because our grandparents didn't speak this way. I cannot recall my grandparents who on one side were sharecroppers, and on the other side, my grandfather was one of the first Black principals in New Jersey, was one of the first Black athletes at Seton Hall University. When I look when I hear that, when I used to hear them, I can't recall them having this victim mentality. So here, how are we the grandkids of sharecroppers, the grandkids of people that grew up in Jim Crow, but we have a more victimized mentality than they did? And all it is laziness. We want to place blame as to why we're not in the position that we would hope to be in, that we say we want to be in. So this gives us validation as to why we're not. And any time you're taking accountability and responsibility off of somebody, you're pretty much giving them the okay to not maximize their potential, to not bring their best to the table, and to convince them that they deserve something that they didn't earn, i.e. participation trophies. Participation trophies. When you can convince people to feel as good about a participation trophy as they would for a real trophy, then you've got them, you can control them. You've got them, you've just created a permanent lower class because they have a lower class mindset. We have become a society that has fallen in love with participation trophies as much as the real trophy. So the winners, the people that are getting the real trophies, they're looking at it like, shit, yeah, let them keep thinking that participation trophies were. Matter of fact, make the participation trophy bigger than our trophies. So that way they'll actually be convinced that their trophy is a better trophy. Meanwhile, we're getting all the wins, we're getting all the benefits, we're getting all the coins that come from it. Do y'all see what's going on? Do we really see what's going on? There's a reason why certain people don't speak up. There's a reason why certain people hide behind certain narratives and certain agendas. There's a reason why Joe Budden's on his podcast saying like, oh, I got to be careful agreeing with you, Candace. There's a reason with all these things. Because they need to keep this division. If you, what would DE&I, what would affirmative action, what would the NAACP, what would all these black activists do if racism wasn't a problem? What would Al Sharpton, who would Al Sharpton be? Who would Benjamin Crump be? Who would the leaders of Black Lives Matter be? Who would Van Jones be? Who would Don Lemon be? Who would all these prominent, so-called prominent black figures and intellects, quote unquote intellects that we should look up to and we should trust reporting the news to us, who would they be and what would they be if they couldn't rely on victimhood based on race? Who would they be? They would be insignificant. They would become insignificant. The battle that is going on in America is not between black and white people. That is such on a low level. Like, that's what they convince us is the problem. So therefore, the people at the top, the battle's between the people at top. The people at the top are not, they don't care about black or white. They care about power, influence, money. But they'll use any and everything because they know that we've fallen into such a sunken place to where we see everything based on race. I'm rooting for everybody black. This is the first black this, the first black that. Stop with all that. Stop with all that. Label me as the first American to do this. The first, stop just, when you, as soon as you throw that black stuff out there, all it does is you just box me into a category. You just boxed me into a category. But my entire existence or my entire agenda is based on racism holding me back. But then we allow people to box us in these categories when you say, oh, the first black this or black owned this. Yo, do you look at the people that are successful around the world? Look at China. Everything being made in China, right? You turn something over, it's made in China. In my opinion, And when you turn it over, actually, let me be very clear. This is the difference. They actually, in my opinion, try to hide the fact that their things are made in China. Almost. That's kind of what I feel. Where it's always like it's just kind of engraved. It's not like a big sticker. But now I go to Marshall's to go get some linen or go get something. I remember when I was moving there, not Marshall's. Where was I at? Home Goods. I can't say Marshall did it, but I was at Home Goods, and all you see, women-owned product, black-owned this, black-owned this. And I'm like, yo, why would you even want to alienate your customer base based on who owns the company? I'm not putting out, my thing is, you don't need to know who owns it. I want to sell to you. I want to sell to you. I want to sell to you. But we've been so convinced and manipulated to do stupid stuff where as soon as you put black-owned, now people that are buying your product automatically are going to be looking at it like, even though you're just saying black-owned, common sense would say, oh, this isn't for me if I'm not black. Now you'll have a few people, a few of the white guilt people that'll say like, oh, I want to support, this. Knock it off. Be real. If it was your product, you would never recommend somebody put that on there. But we've been convinced, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Because one thing that I will say is that we've been so scared and so bullied by agendas like the LGBTQ community. Imagine, you remember when George Floyd died, they were going around, writing Black Lives Matter on every street and doing all this other stuff. And then I don't know how it turned into a LGBTQ movement, but then it went from Black Lives Matter to all Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ Black Lives, all this. And I'm like, wait, what? Like George Floyd wasn't like this. What did one have to do with the other? And then what ended up happening, you started hearing stories about if stores in New York, if they weren't okay, like the LGBTQ community would be like, hey, can we put this sticker in your window that you support LGBTQ? Put this rainbow flag up here. And if somebody was like, no, they would bash and figure out different ways to hurt that store's business. It's insane. And we're so silly. We're sitting around the people that claim that they were bullied the most are now turning into the bullies. They've turned into the bullies. They've turned into the bullies. And I'm gonna give you an example. And this is why I have to separate. I shame on me for not saying it earlier on the show, but I always separate, just like I separate Black Lives Matter, the group, the organization, from actual black people. I'm black, in case y'all didn't realize that. I'm black and I don't associate with Black Lives Matter. Is the same way that I don't associate people who are lesbian, bisexual, gay, trans, queer. I don't associate them with LGBTQ. Now, the same reason I'll get mad at black people for allowing messaging to be put across throughout society as if Black Lives Matter is speaking on behalf of black people, the same way I'll get upset at black people for not calling it out like, yo, we ain't banging with them. I don't support them. I don't like that organization. And I'm pissed off that organization is using the death of black people in order to push their financial agenda. That doesn't even have anything to do with black people. Just go back and find the article on Black Lives Matter, their initial mission statement. I'm not quoting word for word, but go back and look. My takeaway was that they wanted to destroy the patriarchal structure, the family dynamic, the black family. That's pretty much what they were saying. The traditional black family structure. That's what they wanted to destroy. That was my takeaway from it. They may not even have put black. It may have just been the family structure. So you look at these agendas, it's like, wait, all of the problems that we're facing are based on a black man not being in the household with his black family. It leads to all these problems. Look at every single issue in the black community. And you can't tell me one that would not improve with a strong black father in the household. But instead, their agenda is to emasculate black men, emasculate men overall, and to not think of family as needing to include a father. Think about that. But we embraced it. We were behind it. I used to have it on one of my shirts. I was dumb as hell. Matter of fact, I didn't have it on my shirt. I never had Black Lives Matter on my shirt, but I remember when we were playing a game, I had OG on my shirt. But I remember blocking a punt, and then in Canada they bring the camera to you, and I was like, Black Lives Matter. I was a fool. It was a foolish thing to say. Like now I don't think that based on the information and based on where the organization was at that particular time, I was rocking with it. But that's a foolish organization that I don't agree with supporting. And I can call myself out on that. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. We need to realize, like, yo, instead of just what you think, I'm just going to keep supporting it so I can look back on my videos years ago and just say that I remain consistent. No, I think totally different than that time. Why? Because you grow, you develop, you see new things. And as you get new information, it should alter your perspective on things and outlook. Who receives new information and doesn't change anything? So getting back to my initial point, Black Lives Matter, I separate from Black Lives. Just like I'm angry at Black people for allowing Black Lives Matter to push and to use Black struggles in order to finance an agenda that had nothing to do with Blacks prospering. I have an issue with LGBTQ people. Like, yo, my people that are LGBTQ, yo, why y'all allowing this type of shit? Why y'all condoning this? You know that this is some BS. You know that they're pushing, they got drag queens reading books to kids. Like, what is going on? What is going on? Y'all not cool with this. This doesn't even tell the story of y'all struggle. So the other day I'm at dinner. What was it? Yesterday? No, Thursday night I'm at dinner. I was at ABCV, vegan spot, dope spot. Check it out. And we had a waiter that I would say was gay. Just was gay. I didn't ask him if he was gay. I could tell he was gay. Now y'all can sit here. Now let the LGBTQ people, not the people, I should say, the organization. Now they'll say, well, how do you know somebody? He's gay. He's gay. All right, he was gay. If he was another letter as well, I don't know. But my point is that he had such an amazing, nice energy. A nice energy. And let me kind of preface this a bit. Growing up, I didn't see a lot of people getting bullied because they were gay. I didn't see it. To me, that's some sucker type stuff. Like, why are you trying to bully the gay person? Like, or why are you trying to jump the gay person? Like, why are you trying to beat up? I never saw that. So I'm biased in those ways. And I'm like, oh, okay, they experienced that. Okay, bet. This person, just because they seemed to be a nice person. This person that was our waiter. I just sat there and I said, yo, like, why would somebody, I literally started the conversation. I was talking to Maya. I said, yo, why would anybody like bully somebody like that? I said, I would stand up for that person. And the person's name, I even found out his name, Justin, the same name as my brother. We were talking. And I'm like, if that person was getting bullied because they were gay, I don't even think that I'm too out the ordinary as far as, like, I think most men, like, when I think about my group of friends or just most men in general, like, yo, you would try to prevent, you would step in that situation or try to prevent that situation. I'm like, yo, chill out. Ease up on buddy. Ease up on buddy. Like, you would, if you were in a certain situation where you just saw somebody, whether it was on the job or anything. Now, a lot of this weird stuff happens in public. So let me be very clear. I ain't speaking on too much stuff in public, or you gotta realize that that's taking a chance, getting involved in somebody's situation in public. But in a situation like let's take it back to school. That's what we're referring. Like, I would be like, yo, why's that? Stop? Like, yo, ease up off a homie. Like what type of, like, I would almost question your quote unquote manhood for trying to show that you're more masculine by bullying somebody that is openly more feminine and gay, if they were. And so I just didn't see it that way. And I think that we've been convinced, or what happens a lot of times, it happens with Black people, that we've over exaggerated our struggle. I'm being real. And why do we over exaggerate it? And what do I mean when I say we've over-exaggerated? We've identified with it. Y'all know how I am when it comes to I am the brand. Whatever we say that we are, we're inviting that energy to come into our lives. So if we always consider ourselves a victim, or if we see ourselves as a victim, we're always going to be in situations that highlight this victimhood. We're looking for those reasons. It's like, y'all ever know some people that go into restaurants, they always got issues. It's always the same person that got an issue at the restaurant. Like, bro, you looking for this? Like, oh, this my chicken. I don't know, whatever issue that you. It's like there's always an issue with somebody where it's like yo, like just eat your food, bro. Like, there's nothing wrong with your food, but let them tell it. And no, this is the. If you look for it, you'll find it. So once again, what do I mean by we over-exaggerate our struggle? Why? Because the media has convinced us and has rewarded us. We've been rewarded for over-exaggerating our struggle. I'm talking specifically to Black people, but this extends across the board with whatever victim group the liberals and Democrats decide to align with. So in order to convince them to feel better about their situation, so you'll in turn support me, it's pimping. They're pimping. So it's if you become rewarded for screaming like more and more of a victim, if you get a bigger bag of money on the table, if you act like more of a victim, what are most people going to do? We are controlled by money. We are controlled by money over principles, values, and integrity. And all you have to do is ask people what they do for a living. People hate their jobs, but you will spend the majority of your life doing something that you hate just for the money. Just for the money. So we know that we're ruled by money. We know that our society is controlled and manipulated by money. And it's very simple. Give the people at the top a bag of money to convince everybody else that they're victims. So therefore, we'll always control them. And then you have somebody like Candace Owens who's standing on and saying like, yo, I'm not a victim. I want you to change the perspective and how you're seeing things. Just like me, when I walk into an event, when I walk into the holiday party for my biggest client, there's nobody that looks like me. And I love it. I don't love it for the reasons why you may think that I love it. See, the reasons why you may be sitting there thinking, saying I love it is because, oh, I validate my success based on being around all white people. Like being around all these different types of people, it makes me feel more successful. No, wrong. I'm a salesperson. I sell a product. I am a product. The number one thing that I need to do in order to sell a product is to get the attention of people. So therefore, when I'm in there working, I already have everybody's attention because nobody else looks like me. And I'm going to use every prejudice, bias that you've developed throughout your entire life against you. I'm going to have my hair down, looking wild as you would probably think. Yeah, I'm going to have my hair down and I'm going to be moving how I move. I'm going to have these sneakers on with this suit. I'm going to see regulars. I used to do the whole, I used to look at my old videos and it's like, hey, my name is David. Like thinking that was what was professional. Nah, you're going to get, I'm professional. I speak well. So I don't need to adjust anything in order based on, oh, well, this is how, this is, if you become more of like this, and if you speak more like, because this is, no, that's not what I'm doing. Soon as I walk into any of these rooms, I already won. And what we don't realize is that people would love to be in that position. Yeah, these same people that I walk into these rooms, they would love to have my hair. They would love to have just the energy that I bring into the room. They would love to have my physique. They would love to have all these things. They would love to have the glow that I have when I walk in any room. Why? Because I'm just cool with myself. I'm confident in myself. I know what I bring to the table. It's merit-based. It's not feelings-based. It's not based on participation trophies. It's based on certain things that I've achieved, and maybe even more, it's based on the things that I failed at because I've learned certain lessons to where now it's like, oh, if I already failed in this area and I already there was a problem. I had the wrong answer to that test on the problem. So therefore I failed. Now, once I fail, there's certain people that are going to, well, I'm just going to avoid that problem. I'm the type that I'm going to dig into it. I'm going to learn from it. So now every problem, every failure that I ever had, every loss that I ever took, I just learned something and I became better from it. So now if that same problem comes up, I'm not tripping. I welcome problems into my life. I want problems. Problems are the only thing that allow me to show my true value. We think when you watch games on TV, we like crunch time situations, right? Because there's more at risk. There's more on the line. There's more urgency. The people that get paid the most are the people that solve the hardest problems. LeBron James solves a problem. Michael Jordan solved a problem. The Bulls, we can't win. All right, well, let's bring in somebody like Michael Jordan. Let's bring in Scottie Pippen. Let's bring in a team. Now they've solved the problem. We couldn't win. Now we're winning. That's a problem that's being solved. We show value. See, we've been convinced in society to run away from problems, to not embrace them, that we aren't good enough to find solutions to these problems, that we aren't creative enough to find solutions to these problems. That's what we've been convinced by society. And how do they convince us? They convince us by giving us participation trophies. By rewarding us not based on merit, but rewarding us based on race, rewarding us based on whatever victim mentality they're leaning to at that particular time. So why is Candace Owens the most important voice in America right now? Or why was I questioning that? It's because she can eliminate those barriers. She can eliminate that thought. She can eliminate that perspective. And she forces, when you have a woman who, in my opinion, and it's funny because Joe Budden, he actually asked Candace, he said, what is the soft Candace? Like in there's got to be a soft side. And Candace's response was like, I think I come across as soft. When I look at Candace, Candace comes across as soft to me, as super feminine. She got no problem making her husband a sandwich. Like that was a topic that I remember her speaking on, and there was a situation with that. But she's not going to seem feminine to Joe Budden in that particular situation. Why? Because Joe Budden is leaning into a feminine communication style, in my opinion. And I told y'all I bang with Joe. There's been certain instances, I'm keeping it real. There's been certain instances where I had to look back on myself and be like, damn, bro. Like, that's a feminine approach. Like, you getting triggered, you getting emotional, like you sound complaining, like all these different things. I just felt I was moving in a feminine way. And me, I have to be real with Joe. Because when I'm looking at that interview, I see Joe have a feminine perspective on so many things, worrying about how people feel. Or I can't say this because I may lose certain people follow me, or yeah, just let people be how they be. You know, that it was all feminine. I was thinking about like, yo, this is what a grandma would tell somebody. Baby, it's okay. You could do whatever you want. It's okay, baby. Meanwhile, nah, we need some structure and some discipline. And it just showed exactly what happens. This interview shows exactly what happens when you have, and why Candace is seen as masculine. Because when she's having a conversation and just being direct and honest, talking to Joe Budden, it's going to make it seem like she's more masculine because she's communicating in a very direct, honest, genuine way without caring about backlash. Now, if Candace was having a conversation with somebody else that may have a different perspective than Joe, that may understand like, nah, we need direct communication. We need all these things. It's going to allow her to fall back in a more feminine leadership, following, helpmate type of personality. And what do we see happen in family? Do we think that Black women are out here running around looking more like with a more masculine mindset? I'm independent. I don't need no dude. What's the song that the FNIGGA free? That one of the I think Glorilla's song. FNF. I don't even want to say the words. FUCKNIGGA FREE. This is masculine traits that are created by the lack of masculine energy in people's lives growing up. If women don't have somebody to help them raise their kids, that means they have to. We've heard the saying before. Oh, she was my mom, but she was my mom and my dad. What? That's impossible. It's impossible. There's two different creatures. We are two different creatures. But I don't know. So my point is that when you force women to become more masculine, what do you think? Like, if you're not bringing the masculine things to the table, you're forcing them to become more masculine. And that's what we see in this conversation. Candace is going to appear to be more masculine because Joe is responding in such an emotional way. Like, well, how does this make people feel? Bro, since when are leaders are supposed to care about results, guiding, protecting through teaching people values and principles that are based on truth? So when Joe sits here and says, well, what does fat have to do? What does being fat have to do with being unhealthy? What, bro? What? Well, I'm not a doctor. Clearly you're not. But your body is a huge indication of how healthy you are, what your body looks like. Now, I'm not talking about the people taking this drug to lose this and to gain muscle and all that stuff. Your body is an indication. Let's just be honest. Let's just. I don't know. Did the service just cut out? Hold on. I think it just froze for a sec. All right. But I don't know. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm about to go have lunch with my parents. A late lunch. I still got to get that. Oh, I got to post my convo with God to y'all. But appreciate y'all tuning in. Please like on your way out. Share with a friend. Share with an op. Share with whoever. Share with some family members. Put it in your group chat. Maybe send it to whatever social media groups that y'all got. But yeah. And I got to put some pressure on myself to really be more intentional about growing the platform. I think I've gotten a little bit too comfortable with just putting out certain things, putting out certain messages to where I'm not holding myself accountable to actually taking the necessary steps in order to grow the platform and to spread the word amongst the larger community. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Hope y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and always be a thinker. Always be a thinker. Y'all know what we do. We elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, as well as providing our communities, our village, our families, our tribes with everything that they need in order to get to a position that we strive for our communities getting to. And to do those things, we obviously have to make certain changes within ourselves, make sure that we're building ourselves up in order to become the people that we need to become in order to deliver on the things that we live on. We'll get to whatever you throw in that bag. In my bag, health, wealth, and knowledge. That's in my bag. Health, wealth, and knowledge. So we're gonna get to that big bag, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let's maybe challenge ourselves to step or positive note, make now we just got to follow the plan. So with that, I'll see y'all soon. Appreciate y'all tapping in, and enjoy the rest.